Okay, welcome back, everyone. This is Doc from Blades and Blasters. I am co-GMing with Darren. We are following up in our Mask of Nyarlathotep, Nyarla something or other, and Nyarlathotep. And last time we left off with the group in New York. They finally made it to New York, and they came across a grisly scene where their friend, poor Jackson Elias, was found murdered in a hotel room after summoning them for some important meeting. They never, of course, got to talk to him and make it to that meeting. Upon arriving to his hotel room, he was found murdered. After a fight with the assailants, Natalia was badly wounded somewhat and required a hospitalization stay of several days where Thaddeus and Benjamin stayed at her side. After several days of recovery, Thaddeus kindly offered his estate for them to further plan and go forward and try and figure out what is happening right now, what happened to their friend. And upon arriving to Thaddeus' estate, a courier had delivered an invitation, of course, to Jackson's funeral. It is going to be the following day. So I believe we're just going to go ahead and pick up on the day that they arrive to Thaddeus' estate. And let me move you folks there. So you arrive to Thaddeus' estate. He's kindly offered his home to you. And you come upon, of course, this large palatial estate, gates and lawns and gardens and fountains. It's a beautiful day today, despite how somber you are on an emotional level. And this is where you've decided to go ahead and make your home base, if you will, for the time being, while Natalia rests a little more, and the rest of you decide to look into what is going on, what's behind Jackson's murder. You also took a folder from the hotel room that was addressed to Thaddeus, that was meant to be given to him by Jackson, who never had the opportunity. After rummaging through the room, you did find that folder and brought it back here to go through its contents and hopefully get some ideas about what Jackson was trying to tell you. So you come into the estate, and it's a warm place, lots of wood, paintings. Of course, it's all finely furnished. Despite Thaddeus being alone here, you can see where once there were the touches of a woman's sense of style here and there with a cloth or with maybe some china, and kind of pick up that you remember that he did at one time have someone in his life, and these images recall that information. You approach the estate, and after receiving the message from the courier about Jackson's funeral tomorrow, you all decide to retire to the study so that you can talk and go over the information that you've come across. This is the study where obviously Thaddeus took his picture with all the books behind him. And you guys can take it up from here for a moment.
Natalia finds a seat somewhere in the study, is sitting down, and when she sits, she puts her knees together and kind of rests her arms crossed on her legs. She looks a bit more subdued than she usually is. She looks up at Benjamin and Thaddeus, waiting for them to join her.
Benjamin looks over, sees the expectation in Natalia's eyes, and finds his seat someplace close by Natalia, and he just lets out a loud and long sigh.
Thaddeus will walk in with a bottle of scotch and 3 glasses. Come in. Maybe this help us lighten the mood a little bit. It's never easy. And he'll set the bottle and the glasses down on the desk.
Natalia takes the bottle and starts pouring the 3 of them, giving them all about half a glass before putting the bottle down, taking the 1 glass into her hand and raising it to the other 2. Oh, it is a very somber occasion. I am glad that I have you both here.
Very somber indeed. He was a good friend. Yeah, raise his glass up.
Benjamin will pick his glass up, and he just looks to both of them and closes his eyes. And then, so many things have happened. This is a very sad day indeed. So very, very sad.
Yes, it is.
There have been many sad days as of late, and I expect there to be many more, especially if we are looking into this. And she'll gesture a free hand to kind of the folders, the cards, the matchbook on the table. She takes the glass of scotch and raises it up to the other 2, kind of cheersing them without actually clinking glasses before raising the glass to her lips and taking a long drink.
Well, at least I know one thing. I don't think we're gonna rest until we figure out what happened and catch the ones responsible.
No. We must find out who did this to Jackson and make sure we stop it. If not just for him, but for all those affected.
Agreed. Wish I could say I had the 100% trust in the police department, but I think they're in over their head.
Yes, and I would have to agree with that. So there's just so much going on here, and just how does this how all this connects is just so puzzling to me.
I have a feeling that maybe the publisher, John Kensington, I have this inkling that maybe a new book, some more research that Jackson was working on might have led him into trouble such as this. I think maybe I can get us a meeting with Jonah. See if Jackson has maybe delivered any new writings. Maybe some sort of clue as to all this is in them.
Yes.
I have this feeling that even maybe some of his previous work may have led to this. I don't know. I think he was playing with some dangerous powers, playing some dangerous game based on everything that we even saw in Peru. I don't know why he strived to do such things. Why he strived to put himself in danger such as this. Talia will kind of quickly take her wrist, rub it against her eye before taking another drink of scotch.
I'll tell you one thing. After what I saw in Peru, I had to delve in it myself a little bit. Not as much as Jackson did, but he was a expert on the subject matter. It is a enduring process, and it's very easy to fall into wanting to know more.
Sometimes wanting to know more gets you killed.
Yes, it does.
Benjamin looks down at the table and then places his fingers behind the back of his head, and he just starts shaking his head. No, and then, oh, well, where was I for all of this? I did not look any deeper. I turned my back, turned away from you all.
That's understandable. Not very many people seeing what we've seen and been through what we've been through.
Most likely fortunate for them.
That is for sure. If they're able to carry on normal lives without a second thought.
Still, I should have been there for all of you. I should have been there for our Jackson, but I was nowhere to be found. I just simply tried to put it all behind me, and then all of this happens. And now here we are, right back in the middle of all of this again. This murder and this mystery. There's just so many things that I wish that I would have done differently now.
Unfortunately, we cannot take back what we did or did not do. All we can do is move forward and try to figure out exactly what happened and who did it.
Yes. It's easy to look behind and see that all the things you could have did different. It's harder just to meet things head on. But
And as you're all... Sorry, go ahead.
I was going to say, but shall we look at the stuff on the desk?
Yeah, and as you're all discussing what brought you to this place at this time, it's getting a little later, and you have choices. You can continue going through the contents of the manila envelope that was that was intended for Thaddeus, his name scribbled across it. I know Natalia had mentioned wanting to go see Jonah Kessington from Prospero House. There's daylight quickly fading. Between the three of you, you come up with an idea of what you need to do before the funeral tomorrow.
I know Jonah is going to be at the funeral tomorrow. Most likely. I do not know if we should speak to him before or after, but depending, maybe if Jackson has given him some of the pages of his newest book, I don't know if he might be in danger too. If these people are carving these things into people's heads, I don't think it was a random attack based on what Elias has given us from the telegram. It could have been coincidence.
This is true.
I mean, to say the least, and forgive my language, but this is some very serious shit that we are in here. This is so far beyond some of these things that could have ever imagined, but I think maybe it would be best if we approach him afterwards so as not to cause too much of a rile.
Maybe. Well, she picks up the Emerson Imports business card and takes a look at it, flips it over. As much as I want to sit here and stew with two of you, reminisce, we should do something. This Silas and Quain. She'll hold the card with the two of them with the name Emerson Imports display on it. Maybe we should give him a call. See what his connection to Jackson is.
Yes, I think we should.
And she'll hand the card over to Thaddeus. It might be best for one of the two of you to contact him. I am not sure. Oh, and she'll look over to the Dean clock. Maybe he's still around. Maybe not, but thing still stands. Getting contacted by a female voice over the phone might not be the best.
Well, if it makes any difference, I think that maybe Thaddeus should be the one, because Jackson, he left all this information and all these clues specifically to Thaddeus. So it may make sense. Perhaps this man was tipped off, or was made aware that perhaps Thaddeus would be attempting to contact him.
Well, that's possible.
Never took Jackson to be any kind of stupid man. I think that he would be as well thought out as he could be, and especially if something like this was coming about, he would have done all he could to help us along.
Well, you grab the card. Guess we'll find out one way or another. Go out and get up and go to the corner of his study. There's a phone. And he'll go ahead and start dialing the number out.
So you start dialing out for the number, looking for a connection, and it just rings and rings and rings, and you realize the chiming of the clock, the sun going down. It's getting later and later. You're probably not going to get an answer from them this late in the evening.
Well, I guess we'll have to try again in a day.
That is fine. Well, tomorrow is a very heavy day.
But that matchbook there.
Note about it. She'll pick it up.
I wonder, is there a Stumbling Tiger bar in our area, or is that from somewhere else?
Go ahead and make a knowledge is it knowledge? I always forget what all the different attributes are. Let me look at your character sheet. Yeah, go ahead and just make a straight, I'm just gonna say it's a straight education roll. Your education regarding the city. What you know about the city, what's around, what's not around.
Straight education roll. I don't get out much.
Yeah, so, I mean, you're thinking about it. You're like, stumbling tiger, fumbling tiger. It doesn't sound familiar to you. It's not something you've heard of before. And as you're contemplating it, you take a closer look at the matchbook, which actually reveals the location of the bar.
Oh, 10 Lantern Street? Is there a Lantern Street in New York? Yeah, look around.
Yeah, and you're just kind of confused, and Lantern Street, and yeah, it's none of it is ringing any bells for you.
Benjamin, have you ever heard of a Stumbling Tiger bar?
Let me think about that for a moment. Can I also make a roll?
Sure. Yeah, you're from the New Yorkish area, aren't you?
Correct.
Yeah, go ahead.
Education, you said?
Yeah. So, in all of your research and your going from different back alley bars and different locations and your beat reporting, you've been to a lot of different places, and you've been to a lot of different dives in the New York area, whether it's downtown New York, upstate New York. It doesn't matter. You've done a lot of this beat reporting, which has taken you all over the place. And in all of your travels in and around this city and in the general area, Lantern Street or Shanghai Bar or anything having to do with that match book doesn't ring a bell to you at all. And you're fairly confident it's not something you've ever come across here in New York.
So Benjamin thinks about it for a good long moment and furrows his brow and starts tapping his forehead. No, this does not sound very familiar to me. A Lantern Street this does not sound very familiar to me. I've been around the block, you might say, and I've never come across this Lantern Street or anything really related to what is on this matchbook. It's so very foreign to me.
Where was Jackson before this? Like, what country?
And you guys don't recall. I mean, you've received letters from Jackson not fairly frequently, and especially in the last year or so. You've received very little correspondence from him. It was the correspondence to Thaddeus requesting that you guys meet him was the first time you had, quote-unquote, spoken to him in some time. So exactly where he was, you don't know. But you have an idea of who might know. And you know Natalia through your friendship with him and with Jonah, that Jackson also kept frequent correspondence with him as well.
I believe the telegram would have specified where it originated from.
Yeah, SA, but I'm not sure what that means.
Yeah, that's all the telegram says. SA.
S.A.
Yeah.
Well, maybe we can ask Mr. Kensington when we speak to him.
Yes, seems all roads lead to Mr. Kensington at the current point. Although I'm kind of interested in this foundation here too.
As am I.
London, it says.
Edward Gavvigan. Maybe we can pay a visit either after the funeral or maybe the next day.
Most definitely.
So it gets later and it's obviously dark outside now. As you three sit here drinking your drinks and reminiscing about Jackson, Natalia, you occasionally grimace as you turn just the wrong way to cause your wound to send a sharp pain through your side there. The clock's ticking in the background and there's a crackle of a warm fire. It's getting late, and as you finish up looking through all the different things, you realize you still have a long day ahead of you tomorrow.
Perhaps we also retire.
Natalia rises from her seat, putting the finished scotch glass back on the table. Yes. Would it be alright if Benjamin and I maybe attended the guest rooms?
My house is yours.
Thank you, Thaddeus.
In fact, I would think it'd probably be the best as well, too, because at least now we're a central spot in case any of us may be in danger. We'll be in a safe spot.
Indeed. I bid the two of you good night. Natalia will leave the study.
Natalia, as you leave the study, you open the door to go walk out and almost run right into Frank, who was walking up to the door. Frank appears. It's almost as if he has a sense of these things, knowing that everyone was getting ready to retire, and just lets you know your room is prepared.
Natalia kind of stepped back slightly, wincing at the pain on her side. Thank you, Frank.
Frank says, no problem. And he heads over to Thaddeus.
Frank. How's your night going now?
Fine. He said, have you considered what I mentioned earlier, perhaps about maybe hiring some additional security if you're concerned for your safety here?
Yes, I think that'd be a wonderful idea for the time being.
Good. I've been lining up a few names. I'll take care of it.
Excellent. I appreciate it. And he'll look over at Benjamin. Would you mind showing Benjamin to his room as well?
Sure. Looks over at
What?
Benjamin.
Benjamin will fall in behind Frank.
Thaddeus will just take a seat at the desk and kind of cozy up there. He's used to falling asleep in his desk chair,
Yeah.
drinking his scotch.
Frank just says, good night, Mr. Pepin. And he says, Mr. Wagner, if you will follow me, please.
Most definitely. Please lead on.
All right. He leads you off to down one of the many hallways and to rooms where it have been prepared for the two of you, including Natalia's daughter, I am assuming, correct? And is Benjamin's wife here as well?
Yes, I would assume. I thought they had traveled here.
Yeah, I think
prior.
that's all assumed. Yeah, okay. So yeah, they're just waiting in your rooms for you. And Frank says, if you need anything, just ring the bell. And you see there's a bell in there with a pulley. You can just pull for housekeeping or whatever. And Frank wishes you a good night and goes off.
And as he shows you all to your rooms and you greet your loved ones in your rooms, Thaddeus sits at his desk, one last half-empty scotch in his glass there, sitting at his desk alone, the creaking of the house, looking down at the papers. He's just kind of shuffling through them, remembering remembering what he saw in Peru, remembering his friend Jackson, remembering the years that it's taken for him to try and pushes them off to the side and leans back in his chair, facing the ceiling and the camera. Following morning. Now the following morning, everyone wakes up bright and early, knowing that this is the day where you have to go say goodbye to your friend. It is Sunday, January 17th. The funeral is at 2 p.m. Right now it is about 9 or 10 a.m. You can either stay here and discuss things with each other, mill about, or you can head straight there when it's time.
Well, I think seeing that really all roads lead to his publisher, I think we would kill time at breakfast and head there.
Talia has on a very, black formal outfit. And she's sitting down to breakfast. I don't know if Jonah will be there in the morning, or maybe if he will participate in the funeral.
They were pretty close.
Yes. Maybe we could stop by, maybe under the guise of going together. Be nice to see Jonah anyway.
Yes, I agree.
So as a group, your decision is to
Go and see Jonah Kensington. See if he's there at the publisher.
Okay. So of course Thaddeus, summons Frank and asks him to bring the car around.
And he does. You can already see that there's a couple of new faces near the gate. One kind of standing by the gate, another seems to be just kind of walking the grounds in heavy coats.
Frank, I see you found some new formidable friends to add to the list of employees, huh?
He says, I've got quite a few friends, Mr. Pepin. No problem there.
Excellent to hear. I feel safer already.
Don't want you to be worrying. And he just holds the door for you all to get in.
After you, Natalia.
Thank you. And Natalia will enter the car first and sits down with her hands clasped in her lap, kind of looking fairly somberly down.
Benjamin will approach the car door and he turns back and just looks at the house one more time and shakes his head. And he starts to chew on his lip a little bit. S- Hmm. I think today it'll be rather enlightening in spite of all the darkness and the sadness. I think today we will make a great stride. And he looks straight into Thaddeus's eyes. And he just gives this slight head nod. And he climbs into the car. And he sits down. And he just continues to look at least as positive as he can.
Daddy, so take a look around and sigh and get in the car and look at his friends. Not saying anything, no.
Frank just closes the door, gets in, and starts to drive off. One of the men opens the gate for you and closes it behind you.
So he closes it behind you, and there's of course, a somber drive to the location you're going. It's the Cypress Hills Cemetery in Brooklyn. You go through. There's a light snow, which seems perfect for your moods right now, as you make your way through the city to Brooklyn and to the funeral. You get there. There's a small group of people. You notice that Jonah Kessington is there, just like you thought he would be. And there's another man that Natalia has seen a couple of times, who worked with Jackson, his lawyer, Carlton Ramsey, and another young woman with him. There's off in the distance a couple of reporters keeping a respectful distance away. Jackson was a fairly well-known writer in this area, and his murder was big news. So it's not surprising that they're here. A man steps forward, and he's obviously the preacher who's going to be performing the eulogy and the funeral, and he's talking about. One second, guys. I just had a little one walk in. If you want to go ahead, Darren, I gotta put this guy back to bed.
Okay.
Sorry.
All right. Yeah. So Frank comes around and opens the door and helps you all out, and the preacher kind of steps over and to shake each of your hands, and he has an appropriately kind of sober look on his face, and he just thanks you all for coming. And
Natalia, oh no, go ahead.
And then he looks to Carlton and kind of questioningly, and Carlton just sort of nods confirmation, and the preacher says, "Well, it appears we're all here. Let's go in." And he kind of starts walking into the cemetery and towards an open grave. You can see a couple of black grave diggers kind of standing off to the side, just kind of quietly chatting and obviously waiting for the ceremony to be over so they can get to work.
And Natalia follows the preacher and she gives a nod to both Jonah and Carlton. And she's kind of got her hands clasped in front of her. Besides kind of nodding at the two, she mostly keeps her eyes on the ground as she approaches the grave.
Jonah kind of meets your eyes when you come over, and he kind of steps towards you and kind of puts out his hands to kind of take your hands.
And Natalia will kind of reciprocate, taking Jonah's hands as both of hers and squeezing them gently.
He's just kind of nodding. He looks older than than you remember him last, and he just says, "Natalia, I am so very sorry for the loss. You must be feeling he was a great man."
He was, and he will be deeply missed.
He just nods, and obviously you're all supposed to kind of go in, so he doesn't linger too long and just kind of turns and goes in. Carlton doesn't seem very warm and fuzzy right now. He kind of glances at the three of you and just sort of makes a cursory nod of acknowledgement, but doesn't really say anything and goes in. The woman with him kind of stays by his side, and you see her kind of give the three of you a couple of brief, curious glances, but she doesn't really say anything. And when you get over to the gravesite, the preacher starts delivering a little eulogy. And it's pretty clear from his words that he didn't really know Jackson very well. He may not actually have known him at all. You're not sure. But his little eulogy is very kind of generic in tone and kind of in the words he uses and the specific examples. It seems like maybe somebody gave him a couple examples to describe about, essentially summing up how he was very brave and honorable man who always sought the truth, and such belongs, such as him, and it belongs to the kingdom of God, and so on. And you see Jonah and Carlton and the woman just kind of quietly listen. And then the preacher asks if anyone has any brief words they'd like to share.
Natalia kind of takes a look at everyone before stepping forward. Yes. I met Jackson about 4 years ago, and both the time that we spent together over in Peru and the friendship that we developed afterwards is definitely something that I will cherish for the rest of my life. It is deeply saddening to lose someone such as Jackson with his mind and his drive and everything that he strived for in life. It brings a deep sadness to us all, and the loss of Jackson Elias will be felt for a very, very long time. And Natalia will resume, kind of holding her hands, shuffling around a bit, before stepping back with everyone else.
Preacher
Again,
says,
keeping her head down.
Thank you for those beautiful words. Is there anyone else you'd like to say this name? He kind of looks around. You see the woman look at Carlton kind of for a moment, maybe a little questioningly, and Carlton just kind of shakes his head quietly. And Jonah's just looking down. Natalia, you know Jonah's not really one to express emotion very much. He's very wordy when he's arguing a point, but he seems like he's a little out of his element here, and he just kind of keeps his head down. The preacher says, well, if there are no further words, then I commit the body of Jackson Elias to the Lord. And he kind of looks a little unsure who to give he hands a clump of dirt to Carlton in the end to toss on the casket, and Carlton does it. And then the two grave diggers kind of silently come over and start to lower the casket down. You see the casket is very plain and simple. It's obviously not a very fancy or expensive one. And Carlton just goes over to the preacher and shakes his hand and thanks him. It's pretty clear that Carlton knows the preacher personally. And they exchange a couple quiet words, and then the preacher leaves. And Doc, you said you're back, right?
I am.
Okay.
So the casket is lowered, and everyone pays their respects, walking by and lowering, tossing some dirt in. And just like Darren expressed, Carlton expresses some thanks to the preacher, who nods his head and shakes Carlton's hand and looks over at the young lady next to Carlton and shakes her hand, and then he turns around and walks off, walking by the three of you, and just kind of gives you a respectful nod as he walks by and makes his way out of the area. And immediately, Jonah comes up to the three of you, and the first thing he does is reach his arms out to give you a hug, Natalia. And he grabs you and puts his hands on your back and hugs you, and he holds you close for just a moment, kind of squeezing. You've known Jonah for some time now, and you know what he meant to Elias, to Jackson, so you know how much this hurts him as well. Jonah looks at you and says, I'm sorry, Natalia. I'm sorry.
I'm sorry too, and she kind of winces slightly in pain from the hug, but keeps kind of hugs Jonah back as well. I just wish we were there earlier to help him. We could have prevented all of this.
Yeah, he just nods and kind of smiles a little ironically and just says, "Well, when Jackson got a hold of something and made up his mind, there's nobody that was going to stop him from doing whatever he was going to do."
No.
But I agree.
Not even if I asked. Rhoda, do you happen to maybe know where Jackson was previously, where he was investigating his new book? Maybe if he even received some pages.
He did send me some correspondence from time to time, keeping me updated a bit.
In the past year?
Oh yes. He says, if you'd like to see any of it, I suppose we could meet later.
I would. I am hoping maybe some of this will help shed light on exactly what happened.
Yes, well, no amount of light will bring him back, I'm afraid.
Yes, maybe some peace of mind, some pleasure.
He when you say that, he kind of grimaces a little, and looks like he might say something, but doesn't.
Talia will frown slightly and maybe see if she can read into the luck. And,
okay, you can attempt a psychology roll. Okay. Well, obviously you're not quite sure what he was going to say, but when it was clearly triggered by you saying that it might bring some peace to know what happened, and he clearly reacted in a way that suggested it probably would not bring you peace to know what happened, and just clearly thought better of saying anything to that effect, and just kind of tries to put on a more positive mask.
Jonah, I understand this is hard times for both of us, and that maybe you're trying to maybe protect my feelings, protect me from something that you know, but if you know something about what Jackson was doing, know anything, no matter how much it may hurt, maybe no matter how dangerous, especially with, I don't know how much you divulged of Peru.
He kind of starts nodding, sort of almost like maybe a little impatiently, and he says, perhaps we talk later.
Please, we will meet later.
Clearly,
and she looks around.
He's uncomfortable, and kind of he has a little bit confused emotions at this moment.
May I come see you tomorrow?
He just kind of takes your hands to kind of like pat them, and is about the best he can muster at the moment.
As you're talking, a tall, thin black man comes walking up, and Natalia, you immediately recognize him as Carlton. Jackson's longtime friend and lawyer. Ever since Jackson first got his, job in writing, Carlton's been there as his lawyer. You've met him on a number of occasions. You don't know him as well as you know Jonah. You don't consider him quite a friend like you do Jonah, but he is someone that you are familiar with and comfortable with. Carlton, he's wearing a black suit, and he walks up with a young woman at his side, and he walks up to you, Natalia, and puts his hand out to shake your hand, and as he shakes your hand, he leans in and uses the other arm to kind of give you a hug as he's shaking your hand. And he knows what Jackson meant to you. He just sighs, and I'm sorry for your loss, Natalia.
And you see the woman just is kind of looking at you maybe a little curiously. She's kind of standing back to give the two of you room. She just sort of is observing.
And Dahlia will give a very pained smile to Carlton. So she's forcing it a bit. Yes. It's a deep sadness to us all, Carlton. It is good to see you, though.
Carlton nods, and he looks over at Benjamin and Thaddeus. Thaddeus, he has met maybe once or twice, just because Jackson and Thaddeus also kept in contact. But he does not know Benjamin, so he puts his hand out to shake your hand, Benjamin, and says, "I'm Carlton Ramsey. I'm Jackson. Well, I was Jackson's lawyer. Nice to meet you." And he reaches to shake your hand.
And Benjamin stands there for a moment. He's just looking down at the ground. And he realizes there's a hand extended out to him. And he looks up and he meets Carlton's eyes. And he just kind of shakes his head for a moment. I'm so sorry. I was sort of in a daze, if you understand what I'm... Understand my...
Jackson claps the back of your hand with his free hand and kind of gives it a brief shake, sudden shake. I understand completely. I do understand completely. This has been very hard on all of us here today, and I have had these moments as well. He looks to you, Thaddeus, and shakes your hand. Good to see you again, sir.
As always, Carlton, I wish it was under better circumstances.
As do I. Then he looks to the young lady at his side, and he doesn't think any of you, maybe with the exception of Natalia, and maybe not even her, he can't remember. But he says, "This is my niece, Willa. Willa, say hi to these fine folks. They were friends of Jackson."
She smiles, but the smile looks a little forced. And she just says very politely, maybe even a little coldly, she just says, "Pleased to meet you."
Can Natalia get a bit of a read off of Willa? Just to see.
Sure, you can do another side roll.
And mostly to see if, she's just feeling awkward, if she's actually sad about the situation, or something else.
I'm gonna send you a private.
Mm-hmm.
So Carlton continues talking to you guys. He's talking to Jonah. And he turns to you, Thaddeus, and Natalia, but mostly Thaddeus there, just because of Thaddeus's state, his stature in the community kind of thing. But he wants to address all of you, and he lets you know, well, this probably isn't the best time and place to do it, but I don't know when I'm going to see you folks again. So I just need to let you know that tomorrow I do need to go over some important information with you. As you know, Jackson had a will, and I do need to go over some of its contents with you folks. So if you wouldn't mind coming to my office tomorrow, I'd appreciate it, and we could, take care of this unfortunate business.
Yes, there is necessities. What time are you thinking?
Well, I mean, anytime tomorrow afternoon would probably be best. So if you want to have breakfast and then come over to my office, that would be ideal, I think.
Willa says to Carlton, I can have everything ready for tomorrow morning then.
Most excellent. That sounds like a solid plan. What do you think, Natalia?
Yes, that sounds good. She'll give Willa a smile. It's a bit more genuine, a bit softer.
She notices your smile, and she sort of awkwardly tries to smile, but it's obviously forced, and she quickly kind of looks away, and so almost maybe as an excuse to avoid further eye contact with you, she just turns to Carlton and says, I'm thinking maybe it might be time to go.
And Carlton looks at his niece and looks over at the rest of you. He gives you a hug, Natalia, and shakes Benjamin Thaddeus' hand. He nods to the three of you and says, well, you three take care, and I'll see you in my offices tomorrow.
Carlton.
Yes, thank you. You have your... Try to have a better day.
Willa just throws kind of a general nod in your direction, the general direction of the three of you, and then walks beside her. You can see as they walk away, she kind of takes his arm and maybe pulls him down just a little bit and says something to him, a few words, a couple sentences maybe. Something maybe, it seems like maybe chiding him about something.
Natalia looks over to Benjamin and Thaddeus. She's highly distrustful of us.
Distrustful, you say?
It's because we're white. Yes.
Yes.
It's unavoidable.
It is. Maybe one day.
Well, not anytime soon, unfortunately. No wonder there was not a lot of people here. She looks around at the reporters around. Not many want to come in. Not many maybe want to be seen here. But Jackson did have still does have a large following.
Jonah
I
starts to come over as you're talking. Go ahead.
I don't think many wanted to be seen here. And she'll look over to Jonah.
Yeah, he's been standing kind of closer to the grave and just sort of watching as the two men worked to lower it in and then start, covering it up and filling in the grave. And they're apparently kind of finished up, so he's kind of coming over to where you guys are standing off to the side. He just kind of sniffles a little bit and kind of gives a weak smile. And sighs.
And as Jonah walks over and sighs, you see off in the distance Carlton and Willa. They were stopped by one of the reporters who is speaking to them, but Carlton just kind of waves his hand like as he's waving her off and continues walking. And you see the woman, a younger African-American woman. She has a pencil and a notepad in her hand, and she's wearing a coat. She catches your guys' eyes, and she starts walking over to you.
Natalia looks at her, and regarding her, she looks at the three, Jonah, Benjamin, Thaddeus. Maybe that is Rebecca Schosenberg.
I suppose there is only one way to really find out.
Natalia just kind of waits for her to show up.
Okay, yeah, she approaches, and she says, "Good afternoon. I'm sorry to interrupt your grieving." And she just kind of looks to maybe see if you're going to respond.
What is it exactly that you're wanting?
I'm Rebecca. I was just hoping to maybe have a word with you. Talk to you a little about Jackson.
The one that wrote the article about him, yes.
You know me.
I know your name.
Well, yes. She says, if this is a bad time, I can maybe arrange to meet with you another time.
It depends what you're asking, but there will never be a good time. But
well, no,
she'll look at the rest of you.
I understand this is a very trying time for people that cared about Mr. Elias. But there is another man who's not dead yet, whose life I believe could be saved, and I'm hoping maybe you can help me with that.
Natalia looks a bit more intrigued. And who is this man? Rebecca? Or do you prefer Miss Schosenberg?
Have you heard of Hilton Adams by any chance?
Yes.
Well, that's the man I'm speaking of. I believe he's been wrongly convicted of murder. Hoping maybe you might be able to help me with some information. I think Mr. Elias's death is related to his case.
May we leave the cemetery before we speak?
You can see that Jonah seems quite irritated by this whole thing. and clearly is not very enamored of Ms. Schoenberg. And he kind of says, "This really isn't the place for such a thing."
Ah, yes. Jonah is right, Natalia. Sorry to interject. Look at Rebecca. Perhaps you would like to meet with us at my estate later in the day.
She says, "I'd be delighted, Mr. Pepper. It's quite an honor. What time should we say?"
I kind of look at Natalia and Benjamin. Oh, how does 5 o'clock sound?
That would be fine. I'll see you then. I look forward to it. And she nods and says, "Again, I'm very sorry for your loss." She kind of nods respectfully and nods at Jonah, who does not seem terribly appeased by her attempt to alight, and then she walks out.
It doesn't look like your friend was too happy with her being here.
Well, most journalists. No offense to you, Benjamin.
Jonah just kind of does a says, "Reporters have no sense of place and time. Just want their story."
Thaddeus will give a little chuckle. And you look at Benjamin.
Benjamin also laughs. Yeah, yes, indeed, I think that you are right.
He looks at you, Benjamin, like he suddenly realizes who you are, and he says, "Oh, my dear Benjamin, I meant no offense. I'm sure you're one of the better ones."
Benjamin just flashes a little grin. Of course, I took no offense. I thought it was quite a, how do you say, a nice little jab to the ribs, a breath of fresh air, to enlighten this mood a little.
He just nods.
And as you all kind of chuckle at the little bit of levity that you were able to find on this cold winter day in this cemetery, Thaddeus, you see Frank standing off in the distance, standing at the car, and you know that he's waiting for you. The cemetery is emptied out now. Reporters have, after seeing Rebecca kind of waved off by you, none of them attempt to come up and talk to you, so they kind of shuffle out on their own as well. And the funeral's over, and the cemetery is empty. The snow is starting to come down just a little harder, and you decide it's probably a good time to leave now.
Yes. Jonah, can we offer you a ride here, wherever you're going after this?
Says, that's nice. Maybe if you drop me a little ways from my apartment, I would actually like to walk around for a bit.
That shouldn't be a problem. Yeah, look at it. Natalia. Well, are you ready, my dear?
She'll take one last look at the grave. And sadly, look back to Thaddeus and nod. She'll look to Jonah. And when you can meet me at your earliest comfort and convenience, it would be much appreciated, my friend.
Well, why don't you come by Prospero House tomorrow? I might be working today, but I will be in tomorrow.
Sounds...
Anytime during business hours.
After the discussions of the will with Carlton, we will be over.
He just nods and again kind of takes your hands, what's becoming a familiar gesture, and just kind of shakes them, pats them a little bit, and nods to the two men and sees Frank is there, so he just kind of starts making his way over to the car.
And Thaddeus will start heading as well.
All right, Frank gets you all in the car and drives Jonah a little further uptown and drops him off where he wants. He just kind of wishes you all a good afternoon, but his voice is his heart's not in it, obviously. But he gets out of the car and Frank helps him out, close the door, and he walks away, and Frank drives you. Where to, Mr. Pepin?
He'll look over at his two friends. I'm not sure if we could find anything else out today, except for meeting with the reporter.
Well, we have that scheduled. We could always maybe pass by the Penhew Foundation just to see where it is, if we have time. Talia's very, very out of it at this point.
The Penhew Foundation, you say?
Yes. The one that was on the card.
Question: What does the Penhew Foundation says in London? Do they have any offices here?
I was in London. Hey.
Yeah.
Yeah, Thaddeus.
Natalia's very out of it.
Yeah. Yeah, Thaddeus, why don't you... Let's see, what would be appropriate? Really, it's probably a credit rating check.
Hey.
Go for it.
Oh,
Let's see
man.
if you can manage to succeed. It's gonna be tough.
Come on, money bags.
It's gonna be tough.
I've been rolling pretty bad lately.
Sim dice.
Where is the credit rating button?
Oh, you need your token.
I got a token.
I didn't see those.
Yeah, it's
I just don't.
under C.
There it is.
Extreme.
Whew.
Okay, so you are absolutely 100% certain there is no such Penhew Foundation in New York. You would have heard of such a thing.
I don't think the Penhew Foundation has any offices here. Yeah, look at that.
I apologize. Maybe we should just wait for the meeting with the reporter.
Well, we could go by Emerson Imports.
Sure. Yes.
Perhaps it also may be worthwhile to check into a library of sort.
Well, maybe the one I work at.
Ah, yes, you are so very correct. That wouldn't be a bad place to start. Tell me, Natalia, do they have photo references in there?
Do they? That's a good question.
How well do you know your library?
It's your library.
Photo. What do you mean by photo references?
I'm thinking he wants to look up the picture.
Yeah, the picture, newspaper clippings, anything that might be able to link to the Junction ship.
You would have to go through newspapers individually. There isn't going
Right.
to be some. Here's
There's not
here's a,
microfiche or
here's a
anything
bunch
like
of
that,
pictures
yeah.
you can search
There's
through.
no
And
Wikipedia.
Right.
Yeah.
Well,
You have to do
come
it the
on.
hard way.
I'm speaking for Benjamin here. He's a little less fluent in English than you guys are.
No, Benjamin.
The newspapers. Do you have a catalog of the old newspapers or something of that sort?
There's a whole underneath the main library floor. There in the archives. There are shelves and shelves and shelves of various newspapers. Many of the most common around the world.
Yes,
the big
Benjamin.
names.
What are you looking for exactly?
I'm looking to try and figure out if there is any type of mention of these, any of these ships, any ways that I might be able to draw any type of reference or get any background information on what exactly is in the pictures that Mr. Thaddeus is in possession of.
Maybe we can... in New York, and please let me know because my American geography is terrible. Are there docks?
Oh God, yeah.
Yes.
Tons
Okay.
and tons.
Oh yeah, there's an island.
Yeah, it is a massive shipping city. So yeah.
Oh good. Good to know. So, why do we not... Why do we not go down to maybe the docks at some point and inquire? Might be
Wow.
faster. Not maybe.
That is a good possibility as well, but I thought that in order to be a little more thorough and from the investigation standpoint, it might provide more light and more background information on what this ship is, as opposed to, yes, I've seen this ship in the docks or the harbors.
It isn't about that,
And
Benjamin. It's about knowledge of sailors and such that work there. They could point us in the right direction.
when you say go down to the docks, just be aware the docks run all the way around this whole
Yeah,
area.
they're big.
And
We
then
can
if you
go
go
to one of
across
them.
the river, there's docks all over here as well.
Perhaps
and then in Brooklyn there's some as well. So you've got to say the docks. It's hours of walking around and stuff.
perhaps
Not impossible.
the import office might what the ship is. Maybe they're tied in together.
Even just information. Yes.
Well, the thing is, though, is if I'm not mistaken, we are not entirely sure what this ship is. We only have this small clipping, and it is very difficult to discern what the name of this ship is.
Yes, Benjamin and Natalia seems to be getting, just because she's very emotional right now, she seems to be getting a little bit more irritated than normal. And this thing is that you're not understanding is that we can ask someone who has knowledge of ships to tell us maybe more about it instead of just searching through libraries. Maybe not coming up with any things will at least point us in the right direction. You understand?
Yeah, Benjamin senses that Natalia is obviously getting a little short at this point, and He just looks at her and he goes, this was only a suggestion, is an idea. Of course, there are so many other ways that we will be able to figure out the knowledge or the information. And Mr. Thaddeus has pointed out a very good idea indeed, I think.
I apologize. I didn't mean to get short with you. I just think we need a starting point instead of searching and searching through libraries.
I agree entirely. I'm sorry, you'll have to forgive me, is that but once the wheels begin to turn inside my head, it's like endless, it feels like sometimes. And I just go on these little rants, and then sometimes it is just so very hard to shut it up.
Need to drink more.
Thaddeus, did you instruct Frank to take you to Emerson Imports, or did I not hear that? I thought I heard you mention that.
That's what we were talking about going. I didn't instruct Frank yet.
Well, he's driving somewhere, so.
Frank is just driving while you guys talk. He knows that unless he's told where to go, he has different routes that he takes. That he just kind of drives around the city.
It's just kind of circling around.
Yes, he's used to Thaddeus' lonely life.
Yeah. His
hey
whim,
Frank,
his whims of how about here? Which bar you want to go to? Yeah. Which secret bar, of course. Yeah.
Yeah. Knocked 3 times. Hey Frank, do you know where the Emerson Import business is by chance?
I'm afraid I'm not familiar with that one, sir. You have an address by any chance?
Yes, 648 West 47th Street, it says.
How can you get us there? Not too far.
Excellent. Sounds like a good starting place as any. Once we know what we're looking for, we'll be able to look into it further.
Okay. It's less than 10 minutes from where you were. So, he drives there. When you arrive, it's what do you think, Doc? Probably at 4 o'clock by now. Maybe a little earlier.
It is 4 o'clock, unfortunately, on a Sunday. And you walk up, and there's a few people kind of standing around, and you're looking at it. It's an industrial area. There's a smell of smoke in the air. There's the clanking of machinery. But for the most part, for the size of the area, there are very few people around. You arrive at the address that you were looking for. It's a nondescript building. It's got a big window at the front of the building and just a plain door with the number of the address painted on the door, partly chipping off just a little bit. You rap on the door a few times, and there's no response there.
It doesn't look like there's anything occupying it at the moment, right? Any windows, it's all dark or anything like that.
Yeah, I mean, you don't see lights on. You don't hear movement inside. It's evening time on a Sunday.
Well, perhaps we should try back again tomorrow.
Benjamin will step forward and go, Thaddeus, I think that maybe I may be able to assist in this matter. And Benjamin will kneel down in front of the door, begin looking over the door handle. And can I try and pick this lock?
Of course you can try.
Once I remember the skill.
Lock ticking.
Oh, it's locksmith, actually, isn't it? Ah, can I push it?
Yes, you can push it. If you do push it, though, if you take your time, focus, concentrate a little more on what you're trying to do, there is the possibility, though, that someone could come around the corner and catch you doing this.
Why do you both leave me? Maybe you should just keep point and keep lookout.
That is what we're doing.
Yes, and if you get caught by a police officer, I'd rather not be known as a cat burglar.
No, we're not cats.
Nor a burglar.
Oh. So you take a deep breath and you start fumbling around with the lock mechanism, and then there's that satisfying click. And Natalia, you see Benjamin just kind of turn his head slowly, look up at you, and he's got a smile on his face.
Talia looks back very soberly. You must figure out how to lock it back up afterwards.
That is not the skills. That is not the things that I know how to do. I mean, we could probably just turn the mechanism from the inside. It would probably work.
And be stuck inside.
Oh, of course not. Well, of course we turn the and then we leave.
And Talia will hold back what she was going to say.
Listen, instead of standing out in the street, maybe we just move inside and we make things so a little more nonchalant, like we're supposed to be here.
Fine. She'll wander over to Benjamin. This is a bad idea.
Hey, Frank. Is Frank standing by us?
Yeah.
Will you keep a lookout?
He seems
I'd rather-
completely nonplussed by the whole proceeding here. He's just watching.
I don't really want to go to jail today.
I don't think you can ever go to jail,
He
Thaddeus.
kind of smiles. He says, "Do you need me to keep watch, sir?" Or do you need me to go in?
Thaddeus?
Thaddeus.
I think Thaddeus went the way of Jackson and died.
Just croaked.
Riveting. Thaddeus!
Don't worry, we'll wait for you.
No, go inside. We can't hear you, we're blind. Should we take a 5?
Yep, I was going to say this is a perfect time for an intermission.
Okay, intermission. Doot.
Let's go to the lobby. Let's go to the lobby.
Oh man.
Can you hear me now?
Ah. Yes.
Mr. Verizon Man, is that you?
No, I work for Sprint.
Nobody
Your internet just
acknowledges Sprint.
Get better.
Why pay more for 1%?
The best.
1%? Ooh, that's the biggest lie I've ever heard.
Alright. Yeah, I'm not sure what happened there.
Yeah, that was weird.
All right, do you guys want to take 5 anyhow?
Yeah, we can do that.
Well,
Might as well. We're here in the intermission screen, so everyone
Yeah,
take
we
5.
got it now. Okay. 1, 2.
Stop it.
Take 5 what? 5 bottles?
the candy bar.
I'm not familiar with
5 gum?
U.S. geography. Does New York have docks?
I know. It's like, I'm stupid right now.
Yes, it does.
My favorite part of that is that she just got done chastising me because it would take too long to look through the documents in the library. Let's go stroll around for a few hours and see if we can hit up a couple of 100 docs.
Yeah.
I just wanted to go to a dock and be like, here, look at this picture. What kind of fucking boat is this? Like, have you seen anything like it? Like, just a general question.
What you know about the leafy bugs?
I'm Canadian. I don't know docks. I've only met one.
That's not true. You know Google Docs.
Mm-hmm. I say hi to them every day.
All right.
Yeah, I'm back.
Hey.
Yeah, well,
Hey, hey.
Okay, I'm back.
Yep. I think everyone's back. Sound off. Yeah, we know Natty's here.
what?
Who knows Sim's here?
I am here. And I am waiting to start.
Okay, so you guys have decided that on a Sunday evening after leaving the funeral of your good friend Jackson Elias, that it would probably be the best idea to go to the address of a business card that was in the manila envelope left Thaddeus and do a little breaking and entering. There was a click, the door unlocked, and you're standing outside now, deciding what to do.
I think we moved inside.
Yeah, Thaddeus was asking Frank to keep a lookout.
So Frank is standing on the outside. You guys move inside. And as you move inside, you notice it's dark in there. The lights aren't on.
Does anyone have any matches, perhaps?
We haven't. Wait. Did anybody bring that matchbook?
Oh.
No.
It's not pitch black inside. It's just dark in there. There was a window at the front, so there is some ambient light coming in. It's not like you're stumbling or fumbling around, but it is harder to make out certain things here and there.
Perhaps there's a light switch?
I don't know. Maybe if we light the place up, it'll be more obvious. Why exactly are we sneaking in?
Well, we were here right now. I thought it would be more pertinent if we had the information, or more appropriate if we had the information in hand, so that we could study that information more thoroughly and be ahead of the game.
Study what information?
Yes, shouldn't we be speaking to Silas?
Perhaps, but perhaps knowing what this boat is and what it does would shed some very important light.
Well, then I guess you could look for a registry of some sort.
Benjamin will begin to rummage around. Can I make a spot hidden?
Sure, go ahead.
What exactly are you looking for?
Absolutely nothing. No, just trying to find any information on what this boat might be, or if anything matches some of the letters. Get a rundown of any boats with a similar name, or the at least corresponding.
Well, you look around the room and you can tell even in this dim light that it's kind of a shabby little place. It's a standard, front office or front, office type of business. There's a counter. There's some papers lying on it. There's, nothing really that stands out as being impressive or unique or, interesting at all in here.
There's no registry or nothing. Hey,
No, there's no cash register either.
No, registry for like ship registry.
Oh, registry.
Yeah, no.
I
don't think I have.
robbing a register now too.
I don't need to be I don't know why rider.
That's how Thaddeus gets his kicks, by stealing loose change. Yeah.
By stealing dollars.
Yeah.
Stealing money he doesn't need.
$5 richer. Yeah.
In this dim light, it's hard to tell what's what. There's like I said, there's a couple of notepads lying around. There's some papers on the counter. There's a phone off to one end of the counter, but again, nothing stands out as being significant to you at first glance.
So Benjamin's just rummaging through and picking through papers and just looking through, and he just sighs.
You look at the papers, and you can see on some of the papers that there are some of it is based on weights and dates, times. On this date at this time, I received 40 pounds from, and it gives the name of some kind of shipping company or a ship, different various businesses, and different times he has specific things labeled there. 5 pounds of, 50 pounds of brass moved out here, that kind of thing. A lot of importing and exporting, it looks like.
Well, perhaps we should go in there open and figure out who Silas is and what he can tell us about why Jackson had his card, instead of digging around and making it even harder for us if we get caught.
Yeah, Benjamin looks up from the papers, a bit sheepish, And he just looks at Natalia and he looks at Thaddeus and he, well, I think maybe Mr. Thaddeus is correct. Maybe we should come back because I'm not entirely sure what I'm even looking at. Mr. Thaddeus, this was a terrible idea. You've led us astray, I think. We should be talking to Silas.
Yes. Yes, I
Yeah.
felt like being a burglar for 5 minutes would be great. And he narrows his eyes. Come now, before the cops come. Benjamin, I assume you know how to lock the door on your way out? You knew how to unlock it?
I believe I may be able to figure this out.
You better.
So
Okay.
as you go to leave, Benjamin, you go to attempt to lock the door, and you notice that it's, a bolt, and you need a key to lock it, just like you need a key to unlock it. If you lock it, you're locking yourself in, or you activate the mechanism and it'll lock, but you won't be able to shut the door. The bolt will get in the way. So you either have to use your skills to lock it from the outside again, or you don't lock it at all.
Well, it looks like we are going to have to close the door and attempt to lock it from the outside. And if that does not work, well, then we were never here.
And since you already have some experience in unlocking it and you have a feel for it, you'll get a bonus die for trying to lock it.
Did you put everything back where it belongs?
You go fumbling with it, and you just can't catch the mechanism just right. It's just not locking, no matter how hard you try.
Yes, I think that maybe this lock is rusty or broken or something inside. It must have been some kind of fluke chance that I was able to get it open. I'm going to recommend that we just leave the door closed and then we flee the scene.
Did you put everything back where it belongs, Benjamin?
Natalia, I have no idea what you're talking about. Sometimes these things happen. It's just an old lock. I mean, look at it. It's so very old. It's barely functional as it is.
Hmm.
Frank is just sort of half watching this. He's keeping a straight face, but you can tell he's mildly amused.
Thaddeus will look at Frank. Hey Frank, is there any police call boxes anywhere around here?
He said there probably is somewhere.
Perhaps we should
not a
find
high
one
volume.
and say we saw. Yes.
He says, begging your pardon, Mr. Pepin, but I think the safest thing here is just to drive away. It's a Sunday evening. No one's really paying any attention to us right now. I think we'll be fine.
All right. Well, Talia, shall we? Benjamin, you feel like breaking into any other buildings today?
I think maybe I could break into your car and then we could flee very quickly.
We have a reporter to talk to.
Yes. Anyway, he'll go over towards the door, heading towards the car.
Thaddeus, go ahead and make a luck roll.
Man. And look, it is.
That would be in
Too many
the
things.
second section with all of your main attributes in uppercase. That's not a skill.
Beside int, middle of
Nah.
the arrow.
Yeah, no, I had to move
look
my
at that.
miniaturized window.
Nice.
Yes.
Good luck.
All right. So you guys drive off. Frank does his normal thing and just starts driving, waiting for instruction from Thaddeus.
Frank, I think we could go home now.
As you say, sir.
Thank you, Frank.
So Frank starts making his way through the city. He's a skilled driver in a city that he's familiar with. He's making his way down these streets, the snow covering them, other cars passing by, him passing others, until you finally make your way back to your estate.
And what time about is this?
The funeral was 2, probably went to 3. You drove around a little while, 4. Tried a little B&E, 5. So it's getting in later into the evening.
It's probably 5:30, and they're meeting Rosenberg at 5 here. So
I'm assuming that she's
when you pull up, you actually normally. You actually on the way would have just expected, oh, she's probably been led inside, and that's the normal procedure for someone who seems respectable. They would let her into a sitting room and to wait your arrival, and then you can kind of do with her as you will. But in this case, they're not letting anybody in, and you can see she's parked outside the gate, sitting in her car.
As we get close to the gate, I'll ask Frank to stop by one of the guards, the new guards, and hey Frank, would you mind telling one of the new guards that they could let her in to follow us as we go in?
Certainly, sir.
Thank you.
And when the gate guard kind of opens the gate, and you can see he kind of puts a thumb in the direction of the parked car, and Frank puts a hand up and he says, yeah, we know who it is. He said you can let her in. And the guy just kind of nods, and he kind of puts his 2 fingers in his mouth and kind of whistles hard at her and just kind of motions her to come in. And she starts her car and follows.
So you pull into the roundabout at the front of your driveway there. Frank stops the car. He walks around and opens the doors. He stands there at the side of the door as you all kind of climb out, and then you see Rebecca also climbing out of her vehicle. The guards at the front, the gates close again, and they go about their business, kind of one standing there at the front gates and another one walking around the perimeter of the estate. And Thaddeus, you nod to Rebecca and welcome her to your home, and then you guys again make your way into the study so that you can talk.
She follows you in, and she kind of looks around, and you can see, she's impressed with the look of the place. And she says, nice digs, Mr. Pepin.
Yes. I wish I could say I had more in hand of how it looks, but alas, it was passed on to me.
She says, that works. and smiles. She says, I'm sure you're a busy man. I won't waste your time. She kind of looks at the other two and she said, before I kind of go into my little spiel, I'm just curious how you all know Mr. Elias. You seem like an unusual collection of people, if you don't mind me saying.
What makes you think that? I don't think we're unusual at all.
Well, Mr. Elias was certainly not the type to rub shoulders with millionaires. And I'm just curious what your connection was, if you don't mind me asking.
Well, a few years ago, we happened to bump into each other in some, well, I can't say it was odd acquaintance. I was on a visit to South America at the time. And he was there, and we happened to get to chatting. And Natalia and Benjamin, that was the first time I met them two as well. And so after that, the four of us became pretty good friends.
Regular man of the people. She says, well, as I said, I won't waste your time. I'm sure you remember that I mentioned that my interest is primarily in a case, a man named Hilton Adams from Harlem. He was arrested some months ago and tried and convicted rather quickly, I might add, for a string of bizarre, horrific murders in and around Harlem. Are you familiar with any of that by any chance?
We are. The killings, Thaddeus. It's very similar. They all had their entrails out and something carved into their forehead.
She's nodding as you speak.
And that is, you recall the detective on scene at the Chelsea Hotel talking about this as well.
Yes, that is, I remember the detective saying, and then your news article also mentioned something about it as well, if I remember correctly.
Yes, there's a very violent nature to all of these killings, and there's clearly a connection. The police understandably have posited that it's a particular individual, or at most a small group of like-minded individuals who are responsible. And they somehow found Mr. Adams guilty of these crimes with what I believe to be largely circumstantial evidence.
When did the killings start exactly?
Killings have been going on for quite some time, over a year now.
Over a year.
Yes. There's no
Who
particular
was the
regularity or even discernible pattern to where or how or when these murders happen. The different kinds of people, black, white, in Harlem, close to Harlem, sometimes found in the daytime, sometimes found at night, couples, individuals. There's no real rhyme or reason to any of it.
Who was the first?
She said the first was a little over a year ago. It was a black man in kind of the heart of Harlem. He was found in the usual intestines spilled everywhere and markings carved into his forehead, the same similar things that all the others have. I don't think anybody at the time thought anything particular of it, except that it was just some sick kind of killing, maybe a crime of passion. But it continued.
And they think that Adams is the leader in all this.
Well, that's what the police charged him with, and successfully prosecuted him. They had a couple of witnesses they put up on the stand who said that Adams had been seen skulking around where the murders took place, the most recent ones.
Rebecca, I don't know what kind of pull you have, maybe.
What kind of pull I have? I can write, and write well, and maybe sway public opinion if I have facts.
We need a meeting with this Adams.
She says, what is your particular interest in this? I appreciate you. She puts up her hand. Not to imply that I don't appreciate any assistance you might be offering, but I expected you just maybe to be able to answer some questions. What's your particular interest in this personally, if I might ask?
Well,
Our friend is dead, Miss Schosenberg. I do not know if you noticed before, but I feel that we have a great personal interest in finding out exactly what happened.
You see there's like a little...
And it's obvious Natalia, is getting very...
You see a little, kind of maybe a momentary twinkle in her eye. She asks you this question. She says, don't you trust the police to take care of the matter?
And I'm pretty sure Natalia can kind of maybe read that. Kind of, she takes a deep breath and sits up straighter. I do not want my emotional reactions to be your next pop piece, Miss Schosenberg.
She said, don't worry, I'm not a sensationalist author. She smiles. I'm more interested in stories of true interest to the public.
Well, I of course trust the police to handle things, but if someone that you were friends with passed from a murder, would you not be curious as to how they died? Would you not be antsy? Would you not want to find out as soon as possible who did it?
She looks at you. You can see she's kind of looking at you curiously and maybe sort of reassessing you, is what you think. And she says, well, of course I would, but then I'm nosy by nature. She says, most people who lose a loved one or a friend to tragedy are content to their sorrow and hope for good news or justice to happen. A little surprised maybe, but maybe I shouldn't be. And she kind of looks at the three of you, and you can see again she's very intrigued by your little collection of people.
Well, perhaps you can tell us everything you know about what you think happened.
We will assist you in any questions.
She says, well, I'll reluctantly admit to you that I don't really have a theory of exactly what happened, but I have spoken with Mr. Adams myself, and though he is naturally untrusting and somewhat reticent to be forthcoming with maybe his full thoughts on the matter, he has convinced me that he was not responsible. In fact, as irony would have it, it was he who was organizing the local neighborhood area to keep an eye out for trouble, and actually had some friends of his patrolling the streets at night. Of course, the police used that as evidence against him, saying that he used it as cover to do his nefarious work. And his friends were, I believe, silenced by the police, or else they would be implicated with him. So he had no real character witnesses other than his poor wife at the trial. That and his skin color didn't help, I'm sure.
Oh, of course not.
And she said, I will admit that I had some small doubt that perhaps he was responsible. But I think after this murder at the hotel, at the Chelsea, I think it's pretty clear that he didn't do that, so someone else did. Now, I've asked the police to get a look at the body, and curiously, they've refused. But I suspect, from what I was able to gather from speaking unofficially to a couple of the patrolmen, that the body was in a similar state as the others. So one of the things I was hoping to ask you is, since I believe you were at least named as eyewitnesses to his murder, or at least the discovery of his body, that you might confirm for me that it was a similar fashion as the other crimes.
I'll tell you all. I'll put her head down a bit and put her hands in her lap, pulling down her skirt to kind of flatten it out. And she brings her hands a bit, pulling her fingers. I don't remember very much from that day, but I think it was very similar.
Very similar or identical?
I'll tell you, I'll look over to Thaddeus and look over to Benjamin. I did not get a good look at him.
Benjamin just puts a hand up. Shh, shh, shh. No, there is no need to think about that right now, Natalia. This is That is not something that I think you need to focus on.
I'm sorry if I'm upsetting you. Yes. But you do understand there is a man's life at stake. He's on death row.
And who is currently working on this exactly? Or is there anybody working on trying to figure out anything about any of these other cases, or putting this particular case? I mean, who is the person that maybe we could talk to? Is there an entire committee of police officers, or is it one detective?
Well, I believe you spoke to a lieutenant. I tried to talk to him, but he doesn't like reporters very much. I haven't had much luck with him. The captain
I'm
of the
assuming...
precinct where Mr. Adams lives is a Captain Robson. He's officially in charge of the investigation. It's his turf, you might say.
Well, I am very interested if you say he's not guilty and there's been a string. I mean, has there been any other murders between when he was arrested and our friend that you know of?
No, this is the first. Hopefully there will be
no
more, but clearly he wasn't responsible.
I mean, it could be someone who knows about the murders and did the same to our friend, which really wouldn't prove your friend innocent.
You suggest some type of copycat, or not necessarily as a copycat, but an associate, perhaps? Someone who may be intimately familiar with the patterns and these, I don't want to use the word rituals, but that may sum it up.
She shrugs when you say that, and she says, anything's possible, I suppose. I've been surprised in the past by people, but I pride myself on being a pretty good judge of character. I really don't believe that this man is guilty. I could be wrong, but I'm hoping to find definitively one way or the other.
Well, what we can offer is, while the police are doing their investigation, and I poke and prod them along, that if turns out that your friend is innocent, rest assured, I will help see to it that he's released.
She smiles. It's not a very genuine smile, and she says, "Well, I thank you for your assurances, Mr. Pepin."
I wish I could do more and offer an insurance, but the investigators obviously would be able to figure out more than we would. We're just a lot more interested that our friend is who is dead, and we ourselves are wondering why as well. I can't say that we would be able to tie things together for you the way you wanted.
She says, "Can I ask you just 2 more questions then before I go?" She says, can either of you gentlemen confirm for me the manner of his demise? Since the lady did
Benjamin?
not see it clearly, apparently.
Benjamin, I believe you saw it pretty good, didn't you? I was too busy down the hallway.
Benjamin just meets Rebecca's eyes and stares at her hard. I don't understand what exactly is your is your intention here? You want to set this man free, but what
I need
what
to
is your real
I
gain?
need to establish that this murder of Mr. Elias is done in the same fashion as the others. That at least suggests, do you not agree, that Mr. Adams, who is currently behind bars at Sing Sing Prison, could not possibly be responsible directly for that murder? That's quite a pertinent fact, I think.
Yes, I do agree with that. And that is not exactly what I'm asking. What I'm asking is, why are you digging so deeply? What is your real interest, and what's the vested interest here on your part?
She says, I'm a reporter, that's my job. If I think there's been an injustice, it's my duty to bring it to the attention of the American public. Is it not?
Only is it? I mean, I suppose you have some point there, but I don't know, something. You're pushing and digging so awfully deep.
Really? You don't like it? Does it make you uncomfortable, Mr. What did you say your name was? I'm sorry.
And Benjamin just grins. No, I do not believe that I did properly introduce myself. My name is Benjamin Wagner.
She kind of raises an eyebrow and looks at you curiously.
And Benjamin just grins and gives a little nod. Mm-hmm. Yes, I'm sure that you have heard of that name.
I've heard the name, and I confess, if you are the Benjamin Wagner I think you are, I'm surprised you'd be asking me that kind of question.
And now he flashes a bit of a wild grin. So it seems odd because it's not exactly a character that many reporters do have. I'm sure you understand my...
She says, I'm no ordinary reporter.
I did not mean to imply that you were an ordinary reporter. Well, listen, we are getting far off the subject. I will answer your question. And if memory serves me correctly, it was pretty much identical to what she's stating, correct?
Yeah, his entrails, his stomach was cut open, and his insides were kind of spread out around him. And on his forehead, there was a very purposeful cut made, a design, almost like two half circles and then a bunch of just sort of like slices in a pattern. You did not get a very close look at it, but it was pretty clear that there was some sort of, it was almost symbolic something. It was quite purposeful.
Mm-hmm. And Benjamin, seeing that Natalia has left the room, he gets a very serious look on his face as he begins to recall some of the events, and more specifically the positioning of Mr. Jackson's body, the entrails being splayed out, the carvings on his forehead, and he goes into as best a detail as he can, while also trying not to give too much, because he's not entirely sure what the motive is here. I mean, I get, he understands that, yes, she wants to report all of this and get the truth out there, and I do that in air quotes, but he's still a little bit leery.
So, what are you holding back? I mean, if you're describing what you saw, is there anything you're not telling her specifically?
No, you know what? He's just all right. Yeah. No. So he'll just go ahead and recall is in full detail and
All right. She seems satisfied.
give her that
with
information.
that. She said, "Thank you, Mr. Wagner. I appreciate that." Just one more question then. Is there anything you can tell me about Mr. Elias that might link him to any of these murders? Is there any reason, anyone that would have wanted him dead, or was he involved in anything? And when she says involved in anything, she's kind of looking... She's looking very closely at you when she says that.
Benjamin just turns to Thaddeus. Don't think that he was a part of anything nefarious, if that is what you are getting at.
She says, I don't mean to offend. I understand he was a friend of yours. But you understand I didn't really know Mr. Elias other than by reputation as an author.
I think we do understand that. But as far as we know of right now, I mean, obviously it's just happened so fast that we don't fully grasp everything. That he was not involved in anything nefarious. In fact, he was researching a new book that we don't have details of yet. As you can understand, it's been just recently that all this stuff has happened.
She looks at you, her eyes narrow just a little bit. She looks at the two of you and then she just kind of nods. And she pulls out a little pad of paper and a pen and kind of sets it on your desk for a moment, and she writes out her name and a phone number and then writes out New York Times office and kind of tears off the page and hands it to you. And Thaddeus, and she says, well, I thank you for allowing me into your home and answering my questions. I hope that if you do have any information that might help me in my investigation, or would help Mr. Adams, I would greatly appreciate it if you would reach out to me. I can be called there most any time during the day, or you can of course drop by the offices if you're brave. And she hands it over.
Thaddeus let out a smile. Yes, if I'm brave. But yes, we will definitely inform you if we find anything that or hear of anything that would be news meaning. And of course, if we do find anything about the young man that's in prison right now for these types of murders, that you can, I'm sure, with your written word, help procure his release.
She says, I do what I can.
And they stand up and offer his hand.
She looks at him a little sidelong and reaches her hand out a little slowly, but takes your hand and shakes it. And she said, it was a pleasure meeting you, Mr. Pepin.
It was definitely a pleasure. And maybe sometime we all get together without questions being asked about bad things. Wouldn't you like that, Benjamin?
She kind of raises one eyebrow, and she says, I'd like that. and she just nods to Benjamin.
And Benjamin gives a polite smile and nods back.
Thaddeus will go over and pull the bell, string with the bell.
Yes, the butler comes in and just
Will
looks
you-
at you expectantly.
Will you kindly show Miss Solgenberg out to her car?
He nods, of course, and says, "This way, Miss Schoenberg." And she just says, "Thank you again," and follows the butler out.
I probably could have gone without living that night. And your eyes. Empty bottle of scotch again. Never refills. And then he'll catch out the corner of his eye Natalia walking back in, and he'll smile. Seems you read my mind.
Yes, I did not want to be in the room with that woman any longer.
Yes, reporters are vile creatures at times, but they can be quite powerful.
Natalia walks over to the seating area, again pouring half a glass for the three of them, sealing the bottle, putting it to the side, sitting back down in the chair that she is so obviously claimed, and takes the glass and just holds it. Well, I am not sure what you told her. I don't know if I want to know.
Well, we shared some vital details that you probably did not want to know.
For the best.
Yes. I feel that if there is a real killer out there, that is not the one who's in prison now, as she may become quite an ally with if we can't get things moving with the investigation on the criminal side.
I remember I rolled fairly well on kind of spotting what was on Jackson's forehead.
Mhm.
Can I recall the exact shape?
I would say that's probably imprinted on your mind. Yes.
So Natalia will take a sip of the scotch, put the glass down on the table before getting up and walking to Thaddeus's desk, and take some paper and a pen. She'll start drawing out the symbol that she saw. As she draws it, this is what I saw before. She just continues to draw. She just kind of trails off.
Something like that.
She'll take the piece of paper and slide it across the desk and walk back to the chair, sit down, take the glass in her hand again, continue drinking.
Thaddeus will look at it. I did not get a good look.
I did.
He'll glance at it.
Unfortunately.
Benjamin just looks at Natalia. I did not feel entirely comfortable explaining to that woman the details of Jackson. It just something about her does not feel right to me.
She just wants a story under the guise of attempting to help a man out of prison.
And that is the thing. Why go through so much trouble in order to set one man free? And I don't know. It's just so many things to take in. I feel like it was so very difficult to read her, and yet she was trying to be transparent at the same time. But it could, of course, all have been a ruse.
Well, I imagine that that's not the last we've seen of her. Perhaps that next time we meet, we'll know more about her and about what we want to know more about. And then we could kind of fill in the gaps of maybe what she's actually after.
And as you guys sit here and discuss the reporter that was here and rehash some of these horrible memories and again start having drinks, you realize just how late it really is as it's getting darker and darker outside.
Perhaps we shall retire. We have to be at Mr. Ramsey's place tomorrow.
I'll tell you, we'll be on probably at least or second class.
Yeah, Thaddeus has been slugging them back pretty quickly.
Probably more than. Yes, we need to get up early. Natalia will get up, rub her eyes a bit, pinch the bridge of her nose, and flatten out her skirt. I bid you both adieu for the evening.
Thaddeus will stand up as she stands up. Yes, we shall see you in the morrow.
Natalia finishes her glass and puts it back down the table before exiting the room.
So Natalia makes her way to her room, and it's just Thaddeus and Benjamin in the study now.
Thaddeus will fill himself up another glass and sit down in his chair and I don't know what to make out of any of this.
Well, Thaddeus, I don't think that you are the only one in that position. I think there's just so much going on here that it's so very difficult to keep track of what we're really looking for or what we're doing, or if we even have in our sights what that may be that we're searching for.
This is true, and he have a little smirk. Well, it's getting late. I'm sure your missus would love to see you before it gets too late.
Yes, and I feel like in this time when there's so much going on, I think that it would be nice to hold something that is so dear, and because I know the loss that Natalia has gone through, I think to have something like that is just so precious. And plus, she'll probably want a place to put her very cold feet.
Yes, I would assume so. Well, good night, Benjamin.
Yes, and a very good night to you too.
And he'll smile and take another drink as he watches Benjamin leave.
Benjamin makes his way to his room. Thaddeus, you take up your position behind your desk, probably finishing up another drink until finally you also make your way to sleep.
Shall I rub your
You guys
feet
have-
this evening, sir?
I just imagine set the glass down and kind of lean till around the table and just going all the way down to the face first into the desk eventually.
Everyone has a good night's sleep, and the next day comes. You have a good breakfast, and you're talking about the previous couple of days. You're all in fairly good spirits until it's time to go meet with the lawyer. Frank has the car pulled around, and he's ready to shuttle you folks off. He opens the door for you. You all step inside to the car, and you head out through New York streets again.
It's so horrendously bright out today.
Are you feeling alright, Thaddeus?
Oh,
You
Just
saw his
the-
eyes are fairly kind of bloodshot. I'm not asleep.
I'm sure no worse than you are. How are you holding up?
Maya Svetlana. I'll be okay.
So you arrive at his office, and you've had the address already. He told you exactly where to go. You give a small knock on the door, and Carlton comes to the door and answers it. Oh, welcome. I'm glad you made it into my office. And he's very friendly, and he kind of talks a little fast. And he steps aside and puts his arm out as to, usher you into his office.
And you see Willa is there too. She's got a folder in her arms.
Natalia nods to Willa, shakes Carlton's hand as she enters.
Willa seems very businesslike this morning. She's dressed in a very sober work outfit. Not very stylish, but practical and businesslike.
So you look around. The office is small. It's simply decorated. There's not a lot there. It's kept neatly, and before he sits down, the office is located here in Harlem, and before he sits down, Ramsey walks over to a cabinet and opens it up and pulls out a bottle of good bootleg bourbon that's sitting in there, and he pulls out 4 glasses, and he looks around at you 3 and says, I hope you don't mind. It is bootleg, but it's pretty delicious.
That is a smile. I don't mind at all.
So he clinks the glasses together as he grabs them all up with one hand, between his fingers, brings them back over to the desk and sets them down, and then starts pouring some bourbon into each of the glasses. Takes his glass and sits down on the desk, or in his seat at the desk, and looks over at Willa, who hands him the folder that she's been holding on to. So Carlton just kind of shakes his head and lets out a little sigh, almost as in disbelief that here he is with you guys having to do this. He says, I'm sorry, everyone. I'm sorry about your loss. This is hard for all of us, I know. He was a good friend to me, too.
Yes, I did not expect that we would be in situations such as this.
Yes, I'm sure there's not one of us in this room that wishes that we didn't have to be here right now.
So he starts off by looking at all of you and taking a drink of his bourbon. He opens up the envelope and he pulls out one piece of paper that has some handwriting on it. And he hands it over to Natalia to read.
And she takes the paper, smoothing out if there's any creases, and hands over it.
And you look over the letter and you immediately, instantly recognize the handwriting on it. And you start reading it quietly at first to yourself, but then out loud so that the others can also hear it.
Greetings from beyond the grave. By now, I'm sure you learned what I left you is a whole heap of trouble. I understand if you just want to walk away from the whole thing. Hell, I'm dead now, and I'm still wishing I could have walked away from it. But I couldn't do that, and I don't think you're going to either. You've been there for me in the past when I needed you. It's too late to save me, but I hope I can count on you one last time. I've been traveling all over the world, pulling at threads. Believe me, I'm onto something big. Carlton and Jonah can give you some of the details. I've got some of my papers and notes, but there's still so much to follow up on. So much that still needs to be done. I'm assuming I've been murdered, and I'm counting on you to bring my killers to justice. If I just got mowed down by a trolley car, well, consider me embarrassed and consider yourselves off the hook. But I suspect it'll be something else. It's not going to be easy to follow it out to the end. You don't need to finish my book. None of you can write worth a damn anyway. I'm sorry for all this. I wouldn't ask if it wasn't important. Remember me. Your friend, Jackson Elias.
And Carlton looks up at you and he kind of wipes away a tear, takes a drink of his bourbon. He was working on something. He was working on something important. And he wanted you all, you three right here, to carry it on for him. I don't know all the details. I have some of the information. But he said, without a doubt, that you three, his friends, were the ones that needed to take over and finish where he couldn't. And he looks over at you, Natalia, and he kind of just gives you a knowing nod. And then he goes over the will. Well, he left some money. And he has some ideas that he needs you guys to go over with him. and to kind of break it down as he's reading the will, he goes over the more important aspects of it. Essentially, Elias has given full power of attorney to Ramsey. He has complete authority to liquidate his assets. And then Ramsey has been instructed to use these assets to create and manage a fund. And with this fund, he wants you three to continue his investigation into the Carlisle expedition. Now, for some of you, sounds familiar. You've heard that name before. The Carlisle expedition, especially you, Thaddeus. Being, in elite circles in New York, you would have known a while back that another person by the name of Carlisle went on an expedition and disappeared. But Carlton informs you that this is what he was working on. He was working on what happened to the Carlisle expedition. Now Ramsey lets you know he'll make disbursements from the fund to pay for travel and accommodations, living costs, equipment, legal bills, anything that you might need to do, use, or acquire, during this investigation into the Carlisle expedition. And he'll also act as a central point of contact for you guys. If you need anything, Carlton says, you can always call me. You can always call this office. You can always come here. And he pushes over the will just so that you can see all the fine points of what exactly was laid out. And get your reaction to what Elias possibly was up to and what his fascination with the Carlisle expedition is.
Well, Natalia kind of dabs away a few stray tears. If this is what he was working on before, well, we owe it to him to continue and find out exactly what all this is.
Yes, I agree. And perhaps it'll provide some insight for us to follow.
I hope so. Benjamin?
Yep.
I know this will take you away from your wife, most likely, and it will take me away from my Svetlana, but I can't not find out what happens. I understand if you want to stay with your wife.
And Benjamin looks to her, and his expression is very difficult to read, but chews on his lower lip just briefly, and he goes, "Of course, I would like to stay with my wife, but I know that in my heart this is the right thing to do. This is what I am supposed to do. And I know how important this is for you. This is a very large undertaking, and Jackson thought that the three of us could do this together. So I think together we shall do this. And Svetlana, if she needs a place to stay, I think she could stay with Helen, of course. I don't see that that would be any problem.
I just getting her back after these 3 years. 4 years of being without her and going off. Not being able to see her for who knows how long. And who knows where it'll lead us. Is she'll take kind of a moment and again kind of dab away some tears. I know I can't bring her with me, even though I want to.
Benjamin just reaches his hand out and rests it on Natalia's shoulder and just shakes his head in a nodding gesture as if understanding what she's trying to communicate. And even though he's not had to go through what she has in order to get her child back, but still he feels he sort of understands that I guess it's almost an inner turmoil, and he looks over to Thaddeus. Thaddeus, I'm sure that even though this is another one of those expeditions, who knows if it turns out like Peru, I hope to God that it does not, but I know that you are probably more than willing to be there for all of that. And I have a favor to ask of you.
Yeah, so what's that, Benjamin?
Would you be willing to let my Helen stay at your place while we are...
That wouldn't be a problem. They feel like it needs to be lived in, and what safer place, Frank being there and stuff.
Yes, and that is why I think that might be the best place for her. Because of Frank, I suppose, and you also have a few others that are on staff there, and I just feel like that is one of the safest places that she could be.
I couldn't agree more.
So Carlton looks at you all and just essentially takes a drink and asks, well, very well, then it sounds like you're all going to do it. Research the Carlisle expedition and find out what Jackson was working on.
Yes, we're up to the task.
And Carlton looks over at Benjamin.
Yes, I think that we are the ones to do this.
And when he looks over at Thaddeus,
I feel like we must do this.
Carlton takes the glass off the desk and he holds it up to the three of you. Reaches across the desk so that he can clink glasses with you. Cheers, you three. And as he kind of clinks your glasses, he takes a swig, shakes his head. I don't know where this is going to lead, and I don't know what's going to happen, but I know it meant a lot to him, and I know it's probably what got him murdered. Good luck to you three. And he pushes the folder across the desk. Folder carrying several different pieces of paper, along with the stipulations of his will. He looks at you and nods, takes a swig, swallows it, and says, "Good luck, you three." And then the scene goes black. And that's it.
Yay.
Mm.
Woo! Thanks for running.
Yeah, that was a good one.
Mm-hmm.
There's so much going on here.
Even my voice sounds different.
You dare
Darren,
scratch the
Doc.
surface.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, this is still like prologue type stuff.
We're just too busy being sad.
Still in the infantile states.
Mm-hmm.